Welcome to the Oddity Shop, where the bizarre is always on sale.
Hey, welcome in, you oddballs. This is Kara. I was going to say this is Kara and I'm Zach.
It's better than the day I said I'm Kara.
Yeah, I'm Zach. This is Kara. And this is where we tell you some creepy stuff, some weird stuff, odd stuff, bizarre stuff.
Wow,
just a lot of stuff.
You're really going for the Zach today, hey?
Yeah, and also you yelled at me and said, let's hurry up because you want to go to bed. So I'm trying to hurry up.
I do want to go to bed. I'm a sleepy boy.
What do you got for me? What's new? What's good?
Okay, so we are still going to Mid-Michigan Paracon. Well, actually, we are now going to Mid-Michigan Paracon this weekend. We were only going to go for the What's Up Weirdo event, which unfortunately got canceled, which is totally fine.
Yeah.
And they did upgrade our ticket from just that to a full day pass for the event. So I am pretty excited about that. And we'll get to see some people we met at the North Michigan Paracon and get to hang out with some other creepy people and get away from the normal people we deal with for a few days. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm still a little bit bummed, but I'm excited that we're still decided to go. We just canceled a bunch of we kind of just restructured everything. Like, we're not staying the night anymore, so we got to cancel. We saved some money on our hotel.
I do finally get to give you that gift that I bought you like forever ago.
Oh, yeah. I get to give you your mom's cups. Yeah, so, and then our tickets got upgraded for more expensive things. So, that's fine.
We'll take it.
And we're saving money on hotel and stuff so we can buy more things.
I was going to say, look at us like actually making the responsible decision. But the second we get there, we're going to co-enable. Like, we were going to get a hotel. So now we can buy everything.
Exactly.
Buy everything.
So there's that.
I'm pretty excited about that. Then the following weekend, and maybe you can help me out with this. I get to go to Morena's child's first birthday party. I
just took a sip and almost spit because okay. Morena's child.
Well, because, I was just going to say Peeba's first birthday party, but her name is Amelia, but Julia and I have called her Peeba since she was conceived.
Yes.
Whole long story. Anyways, what do you buy somebody for their first? So my plan.
What is she like?
The 1-year-old child?
1-year-olds like things.
I don't know. So, my plan, right? I feel like because everyone's going to buy stuff for the baby, like, do I get wine for the mom who definitely needs it to deal with a 1-year-old?
Yeah, but you still need to get her something.
Do I, though? What if I'm like the one person who thinks of Marina while everyone else is buying things for her child?
Here's what you could do. You definitely could get something for Marina. I think that's awesome. Because a lot of people think that, like, birthday is like the birth that you've given of your child. So it's kind of your day, which is, I like that. So I think you should give Marina something. I still think that you need to get Amelia something. And it could just be something sentimental that you think of. So you could just think of something sentimental for Marina that's for her, if that makes sense.
I'll probably just make Nick buy something from Target, like a cute onesie or something.
When is this? I'll figure it out.
Thank you. That's really why I brought it up. I want you to do it for me.
Jesus Christ. Okay, I'll figure it out. Do you feel like being crafty or lazy?
Lazy. I have so much going on between now and then that lazy.
Okay. I really, 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 really wish you would have said something like last week because I see you in 2 days and I could have done this for you.
Okay, well, get crafting. What are you going to make?
I can't. I work. People work.
Oh my God. Do it afterwards.
Do you have a question for me?
No, I don't actually, because you're being salty and I don't want to ask you anymore. Okay. Yes, I do though. What is the weirdest thing that you remember happening in grade school?
Define weird. We'll define weird.
No, you always ask me to lock it down. Nope, just go with whatever comes to your head.
When I was in elementary school, I used to get really bad migraines to the point where I couldn't see and I would kind of black out. I was getting a migraine. It was 5th grade. It was 5th grade picture day, end of the year. It was a really bad migraine. I wanted to go home. I went to the nurse's office. They were like, you can't go home, sweetheart. You got to get your fucking picture. I don't care. Ugh. So they call my mom. My mom's like, okay. And they're like, well, we're just going to let her lay here for a little bit. We want her to be able to get her picture. You can come pick her up. I'm literally dying. Like, I'm white as a ghost. Like, I am like going through it. So they're like, we're not going to put you outside on the bleachers. We'll do you last. Like, so, you know, the whole 5th grade, all the classes can go out. We'll put you on there last, take the picture, and you can go home. Cool, whatever. So I remember, shout out to Mr. Berkemer, gym teacher, comes and gets me. He's walking me out. Mind you, every 5th grade class is sitting on these bleachers. So there's like hundreds of kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do? I fucking vomit in front of all of them.
Oh my God.
So I go home, and then
so
later.
You're like puke girl for years.
Still one of my best friends. Yeah. No one actually, because it was like the last day of school or something. So nobody really remembered it. But the weird part is one of my best friends to this day, Dan Batten. Shout out Dan Batten. I love you so much, Danny B. He calls me. He's like, hey, Kara, I went back to the school and I skateboarded over your puke.
Ew.
And I was like, cool.
But also
So
I could see Danny B saying that 100%.
And doing it. And so that was the weirdest thing.
All right.
That I can remember, at least.
I mean, that works. That's pretty weird.
What's yours?
I was trying to think of this kid's name, and it's not coming to me, but I want to say it was like, Danny or something. I think it was Bobby. And Bobby was a weird kid. So, you know, like the science, like, autopsy is coming to mind. What's the name for autopsy, but it's like little critters?
Dissect.
Yes, dissection.
An autopsy. We're doing autopsies in elementary school.
So an autopsy day in elementary school.
Wait, you did we dissect things in elementary school?
I did.
Oh, what?
But Bobby cut up we did fetal pigs, and
we did that in high school.
I remember somehow he found twine and sticks and made it into a puppet and was like trying to like make his into a Muppet, and the teacher tried to kick him out of the class, and this kid went running around the halls with his Muppet pig. It was honestly disturbing.
What movie is that in? There is literally a movie or a TV show where that literally happens because it's like a disturbed person.
Probably written by somebody who was also traumatized in my grade school. But yeah, anyways, you want to hear about some other weird things that happened to kids in grade school?
I don't think that I do, if that's your story. I know it's only going to be worse.
Not worse than a gruesome level.
Okay. How did we get here?
I don't know how we got here, but I am taking you back to 1994.
Okay.
It was actually mostly, I got a lot of this one from a Netflix show called Encounters. But this is kind of wild, and there's a couple different ways that it could go, but okay. I'm going to pull the Kara on this one. I'm the full believer.
Wow.
So 1994 in Ruwe, Zimbabwe in southern Africa, there's a bunch of school children who had a very strange phenomenon happen that may have turned some of them into environmentalists at a very young age.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of this?
I don't know yet.
Okay. So Ruwe, Zimbabwe is about 22 miles from the capital of Harare. Back in the 90s, Ruwe was like hardly even a town. It was more of like a crossroads.
Okay.
And it's also important to like kind of get a mental image of the geography. So if you've ever gone to a zoo and seen like the safari area, right?
I thought you were just going to say, so you ever went to Zimbabwe?
No,
I haven't.
But it's like, so most of it is kind of like rolling hills. It looks a little bit deserty, but there's like short brown grass. There's patches of tall grass. There's like the safari trees that you see giraffes eating from. Okay, picture a schoolyard around it, and then just safari as far as you can see.
Sounds amazing.
Honestly, I would love to go there. So the school is called the Ariel School. It was a private school, very expensive. Had mostly white children. Then the next biggest population was Asian, and then finally African, which is kind of strange. But, you know, with all the, you know, missionary and white savior complex work and then private school, I'm not too surprised.
Gonna say that. Okay, perfect. Great.
The building itself is like kind of large and sprawling. It's mostly only 1 story, 2 in some places, but it's not like a very tall building.
Okay.
Surrounding the building is a giant schoolyard. So you've got like playground equipment, some sport areas, but it's pretty much still safari looking inside and outside of the fence. Which, like, I'm super jealous of these kids because in some of the videos you can see them talking like, it's not weird to see things like giraffes and other... Is it giraffe or giraffes? Giraffe? I don't know what the plural is. Whatever. Anyway, so, but you'd see like giraffe
just here.
And other like wildlife and like, I mean, it would just be like a really unique way to go to school.
Giraffe.
What is the plural of giraffe? Is it just
Giraffes.
giraffe? That doesn't sound right.
Hey Siri, what's the plural of giraffe? Giraffes. Giraffe.
Why does giraffes not sound right?
What do you think giraffe sounds right?
Well, no, it seems like it's one of those things where like the singular form is also the plural. Like giraffe kind of sounds like it could be more than one giraffe.
Giraffe.
Fuck off. Okay. Anyways, back to the Ariel School, 1994. Something fucking wild happens to these kids. Are you ready?
Okay, let me ask you a really quick question. Is this like a normal elementary school? Like for us, is it like age, like kindergarten to 5th grade? Like, are they all different?
They just say it's like their year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever.
Okay.
But it's like it's young children.
Okay.
So September 16th, 1994 starts off as an ordinary day. The kids go from class to class. And then it comes time for recess. So 64 kids head out into the schoolyard. However, the entire faculty did not join them. They stayed inside because there was a faculty meeting.
Wait, nobody monitored these kids? They could get eaten by giraffe.
This is 1994, homie. Parents didn't care yet. The giraffe were hungry, all right?
Well, you did say it was fenced around it, right?
Chain link, but yeah. I mean, on the safari, I feel like I'd want something more, but whatever.
God,
so
okay.
while the staff's inside, the children are doing their usual recess things, right? Like some are playing on the equipment, others are running around, playing sports, some are just like sitting and chilling with their friends, while others like, and I'm sure you remember this, like pairing off with like 1 or 2 other friends and just kind of like walking around the gate because you're like too cool.
Yeah, but there's probably a lot of bullying and people getting beat up because somebody's watching.
Probably. So anyways, they're doing their like typical recess behaviors.
Okay.
But over the next 15 minutes, these kids' lives were like completely turned upside down.
Wait, I'm so sorry. Can I just tell you what came into my brain? Because you'll love it.
Yeah, go ahead.
It literally reminds me of the cafeteria scene in Mean Girls when it turns into Safari.
As soon as you started talking, I knew that's where that was going.
Okay, go.
Okay. So one of the mean girls.
Yeah.
Actually, from all the interviews I've seen, this woman seems very sweet. But one of the girls, Emma, she years later in an interview describes what happened as this.
Ooh. Okay.
So we were at recess. I was in year 6. And Selma and I were out roaming around the fence in the yard. We got near the out of bounds area when we saw what appeared to be a shiny bright light and went, "What was that?" So Emma and Selma are watching this bright light, and what turns into a large light making like a disc light object with 3 or 4 other lights around it.
Aliens.
Oh yeah, they're looking at UFOs. Okay. So the largest object was at least like 60 to 80 feet in diameter. And then there was the 3 little ones. And they said at first it sort of seemed like they were almost doing a thing where they were like maybe transferring things between these ships or dancing around each other.
Children know the dimensions.
She didn't. I actually made the dimension up because in the video she was back at the school and said it started about here and then walked across and it ended
Okay,
here.
I was gonna say no.
I am estimating 50 to 80 feet, and that's just my best head math.
Cool. That makes more sense to me. Thank you.
So anyways, the smaller objects disappeared, and what was left was a shiny disc with lights that were turning on and off on kind of like the bottom part of it.
Okay.
Next thing Emma and Selma see is a door open and a being getting out of the main object. A being. He... Now, mind you, so they are probably about 100 yards from the object. Okay, so only 300 feet. This being gets out and starts moving towards them.
Just sounds like you're saying a being, and I love it.
There's a being. He gets within about 15 feet of them. I'm sorry, I'm assuming gender. It gets within about 15 feet of them.
What did it look like?
Well,
I'm so excited. I'm sweating.
According to them, they were wearing
Yes.
Skin tight black clothing. Some
Okay.
were described as
Love
being
it.
almost like a diver's outfit.
Okay.
And that it had a very large head that was bigger on the top and then kind of like came down on the bottom, and had
Okay.
2 really, really large eyes.
What color was it? They?
So it was all black.
Oh, even the skin?
And, well,
Okay. Sorry. I'm just
someone
excited.
and Emma said it was wearing black clothing and had very dark, almost greenish black skin, and then the big black eyes.
Okay.
Once it gets within about 15 feet with them, Selma says that everything else around them faded away except for them and the being. I'm going to just super emphasize that now. And she said it never made physical touch contact with them.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as they made eye contact, she said it felt like her entire body had been like invaded by this thing.
Like maliciously?
They just felt it was very not malicious, but just no boundary.
Yeah. Like they're just like
Right?
overwhelming. Okay.
So Emma and Selma start to feel messages telepathically. The messages that came across were how important the environment is,
Oh.
and that they as humans had a responsibility to take care of it, and that
love
everybody is
this.
responsible for the planet.
Oh my God. I love this.
The creature also gave them a warning on technology,
Ooh.
and that if the world relied too much on technology and weren't aware of the risks, that the entire world could be in peril if things did not change.
So like now.
Yeah. They also warned that tech would only improve and it would not do humanity any good.
I'm dead.
Now, remember, Emma and Selma were near like an out of bounds area. They were pretty far away from most of the kids when this happened. But they're not the only ones who witnessed the event. And Selma actually said they basically watched the entire schoolyard divulge into chaos.
And I love how the teachers are just having a faculty meeting.
Right. So of the 64 kids that were outside, 60 of the students witnessed something.
Ooh.
Now, their stories all differ a little bit.
Okay.
But overall, they're pretty similar. So they were anywhere from seeing one disc to multiple discs. And a lot of them were spotted on the hill just outside of the bounds of the school.
Okay.
So a lot of them are kind of like rushing the fence now to get a better look, right? Some of the kids say they only saw the crafts, while others saw or reported seeing anywhere from 1 to 4 figures emerging from the discs.
Did you already say this? Or how long did this happen
15
for?
minutes.
Dang, okay.
15 minutes start to end. Now, with the discrepancy in the number of beings they were seeing, where Emma and Selma were saying when they looked at it, like everything else seemed to fade away, it almost seems to have some sort of hypnotic ability with this telepathic, right?
Yeah.
Which could explain some of the differences we get in the stories. But some of the kids say that the figures wore black skin-tight clothes. Others say they were black-skinned.
That's what I was wondering. If maybe it wasn't clothes. It was just them.
And that's where, I told you, like, that's what Emma and Selma said. But some of them were saying it was a dark green or black. Everyone said the same thing, though. They had these huge eyes. And many of them described hair like Michael Jackson, which I love because, like, children in Zimbabwe, right? Like, in 1994, you don't have access to the internet. Like, you're going to describe these things as, like,
hair
what you already
like
have.
Michael Jackson.
Right, a mental image of. Now,
I love that.
I will say that, too. If we're talking about, we have white, we have Asian, and we have African children all from different cultural backgrounds. A lot of people said some of the discrepancies in what they were describing could have been based on their cultural understanding of the world. So some of the African children actually thought they were like these Zimbabwe lore spirits. So just based on their own upbringing, they had the way they perceived the event was different.
That is really funny because I can think of what those children probably thought they looked like. I'm trying to Google it so I can like.
While you're Googling, I'm going to keep going.
Okay.
Now, Emma and Selma were not the only ones who got messages. Probably about five or six students in total claimed they had received some sort of telepathic message.
This is what I'm showing you. This is kind of like what I was thinking. I know that's not, but that's what like is in Zimbabwe, like their spiritual, like it's like that's what they look like.
Yeah.
Like a black, so that makes sense.
So you're kind of fitting it to the schemas you already have in your brain, right?
Yeah, that's a really good whatever.
Within a few minutes, these beings went back into their ships and took off. Like I said a couple times now, the whole thing happened over 15 minutes. The kids go back inside from recess and they immediately start telling the teachers about what happened. Now, not a single one of the teachers believed them. They brushed them off. And
of course.
They tried to carry about the day as normal. Oh, the teachers basically hoping things would go back to normal, right? Until the next day.
Can you imagine how chaotic it would be, though? 60 elementary school students just freaking out all day, and you're just like a teacher.
Right. And let's be honest, this is a private, mostly white school in Zimbabwe. You know there's religious ties to the school. So are they even going to entertain a UFO for a second? No. So anyways, though, the teachers realized the next day that they weren't going to be able to just make this go away because most of the kids went home and told their parents about what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then the parents started showing up or calling, demanding some answers.
Yeah.
So through the stink raising that the parents were doing, a BBC reporter actually hears about this. So, it's Southern Africa. England has a very large hold still on that area. So a lot of the white students who were there were British.
Mm-hmm.
So BBC gets a hold of it and they send a researcher, and the ufologists also find out as well. So you've heard of MUFON, right?
Have I?
Mutual UFO Network. It's basically the top-notch UFO researchers who have all these databases, and basically they're like the unofficial Men in Black. Like not the Men in Black of the real world, but the Men in Black of like the movie world.
Yes, okay.
So BBC sends in reporter Tim Leach. Tim Leach usually does war coverage. He visits the school a couple days later on the 19th of September. He starts to interview the kids, and after investigating, he says,
"This part sounds familiar.
I could handle war zones, but I could not handle this." He also states the fear was so real and what these kids were saying was so out of this world, but somehow they all believed it.
Oh.
So next comes in ufologist from MUFON, Cynthia Hind. She interviews the kids, but she goes a step further too and asks them to draw what they had seen.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Their spoken story, right? Because they're all using their cultural beliefs when they're saying it may have differed. The drawings themselves were overwhelmingly similar.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
Okay, now it blows up, right? This is on the news. Have you ever heard the term UFO flap?
I don't think so.
Okay, this is popularized. It's a term, and I'm pretty sure it came from John Keel. John Keel, who wrote Mothman Prophecies, famous researcher, ufologist.
Yeah.
So he always kind of used these terms, the UFO flap. So when he is researching one event, he's always looking around at all the other areas to see what else is going on, because typically it's not a UFO sighting. It's a wave or window of UFO events where strange things all occur over like a similar area, right?
Yes. Okay.
So Zimbabwe, especially this Ruwe area, is definitely having a UFO flap around the same time. So not only now do you have the 60 kids' stories, as the story came out on the news, others were coming forward with strange experiences. So 2 days prior to what happened on the school grounds, a number of reports had come in of people seeing a flaming object moving through the sky, like a fireball at night.
Okay.
Some thought it was like a comet or a meteor. Others thought there was the Zenit 2 rocket that was supposed to be re-entering the atmosphere after that time, that had just launched a satellite. But as more and more reports came out, right, it seemed to be pretty UFO-like in nature. So Cynthia Hind starts to look into those. She also records a ton of UFO and alien being sightings around that time.
Wow.
A couple miles from the school on the same day, a mother and a young boy reported seeing the same discs. And a trucker also reports almost hitting one of these beings in the road.
Oh.
Right.
Can you imagine?
I kind of brought this up a little bit earlier, but Cynthia is the one who kind of popularizes the idea of these kids were really tapping into their cultural notions. Because once again,
Yeah.
this is 1994 in Zimbabwe. They don't have
Right.
the internet.
No.
So most of these kids had never accessed any media about UFO or aliens and should not have had any preconceived notions about flying saucers or anything that could have really tainted their testimony.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, but to get maybe a solid group of 10 kids to like lie or prank, if you will, possibly, I feel like one's gonna cave. 60? Like, how do you explain that?
And I agree with you, right?
Little
where,
kids.
Like, kids are also, it's easy for them to believe things.
Well, they're very imaginative. I understand. But
This gets into
come on.
our next section really, really well. You actually laid it perfectly. Because a lot of people started writing it off as mass hysteria. So one or two kids probably saw something, and they're like, oh my God, there's an alien on the school ground. Well, now everyone's out looking for the aliens, right? And they start to almost feed off of each other's stories. Mind you, a lot of these kids have been interviewed for different films and documentaries a lot since then.
Mm-hmm.
So they're in like, a lot of them are late 30s to early 50s at this point. And a lot of the faculty and everything tried to write it off as this mass hysteria event. Some even said like there was a gardener at the time who had some metal sheets that were reflecting the sun, and he was wearing all
Shut up
black,
right
and
now.
that's what they saw. Yeah.
Don't tell me that. Don't.
And then there's one student. So remember, 64 total were on the ground. 60 saw the aliens. There's one who's come out years later in one of the documentaries. He's actually in the Encounters episode from Netflix, stating that the entire thing was a hoax started by him and his friends because they didn't want to go to a class that was right after recess, and they thought, making up the story about an alien, and it just took off across the schoolyard.
How did they, no. Mm-mm.
And I'm right there with you.
How did these little kids then, these two girls, come up with this environmental shit and then technology
those
ruining
two
our
girls
lives? No.
are part of the reason why I think it's so believable. So
Yeah.
what happens next is there's a renowned psychiatrist named John Mack. He's actually a Harvard professor.
Okay.
At the time he went to the school, he's still a Harvard professor, but he's kind of getting ousted by Harvard.
Okay. Right now, you're saying?
Back in this time. So about the time he's going to the school, he's also, people are starting to lose credibility in him. And the only reason is because he takes up such a huge interest in UFO and alien abduction and all this stuff.
Gotcha.
And everyone at that time is like, this is hokey.
Yeah.
He was interviewing and studying a lot of people who had abduction stories.
Okay.
And then he was being very vocal in the media about it. And Harvard at that time is like, we can't have a psychologist who's saying that aliens are real and then going on the news saying, I'm from Harvard and here's why you should believe me.
Yeah. Yes, I get it.
I don't think Harvard would do that now. They'd probably lean into it way more.
I was going to say,
90s,
then I get it.
So, I mean, he was kind of being discredited, but to no fault of his own. He was just being vocal about the things he was
just
researching.
be honest.
So he hears about the story, and 2 months later in September, he makes his way over to Roué. He does a lot of group interviews, but he also interviews at least a dozen of the children who had the most intense experiences individually. And remember, these are the same kids who were told by faculty and their parents and other reporters that nothing happened to them, right? So he spends a lot of time with them just listening. And his biggest findings were how terrified the children were when they were telling the story. So, I mean, if you think about, right, a kid making up a story that's not real, you can usually tell because they're so excited and they're adding in all these details. Emma, Selma, and one other girl were talking about how fearful they were because they didn't know if it was going to come back or if it wanted to hurt them and their family. And there was a strange noise they heard at the same time that sounded like a flute. And anytime they hear music close to that now, they get this intense fear.
Like PTSD.
Right.
Oh, poor babies.
Only Emma and Selma got messages, but others got environmental warnings as well. And as he kind of dove deeper into them, that's where things get strange. So mind you, these are young kids, right? So he does the same thing that Hein did. He has them draw it, he has them explain it. But he's more interested in not just what happened, but what were you feeling when it happened? What did you feel after, right? And he would re-interview them to look for discrepancies, and the stories stayed really similar. He looked at body language, though, what they were looking at when they were saying things, and he found that there's just like fear, right? Then has 11-year-old kids in these interviews saying something bad is about to happen and pollution just mustn't be. Kids who shouldn't even really know what the word pollution is.
Or, okay, hold on. Not even that. At 11, why do you care about pollution?
Right.
You don't. So to have them being fearful of it.
Dude, another 11-year-old girl goes, I think they just wanted to get a message across that we're actually doing harm on the world and we mustn't get too technologized. An 11-year-old.
I'm over it. This is insane. Believe them. Just believe them.
One other child was told by the beings that the world was going to end because we're not taking care of the planet. Like, these are things 10 to 12-year-olds don't just come up with.
No, they wouldn't make that up. But also, it's like, it's just, even if they knew about pollution or like whatever, they wouldn't collectively, 60 of them, or maybe they didn't all hear that message, but
right.
That's just not what they would say. They'd come up with a story that they're gonna get abducted or they're gonna get murdered or, you know what I mean? They just, pollution.
And to have
no.
6, 7, 8 kids all saying the same similar things.
No. Mm-mm.
So Mac, the researcher, feels certain that based on the evidence he gathered that the kids were not making this up, and said that something so scary, real, and powerful to them makes him believe that there's no way that they all just kind of came up with this and that it's not mass hysteria.
Right.
Now, a lot of those kids, too, have said in interviews since, and unfortunately, we can't hear anything from Mac anymore. John Mac was killed by a drunk driver in the early 2000s. So he can unfortunately no longer weigh in. But many of these students still have a huge respect for him because they were fearful of talking about this at school where they were being shut down. Or some even said, they were threatened to be smacked when they got home for talking about it because it was just things their parents either didn't understand, didn't believe, or didn't want to hear about.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like when children say that there's ghosts in their house.
Right. So having this man who actually kind of, would listen to them, gave them some sort of closure because most of them were labeled as crazy by their peers. And a lot of them even said, like, the event wasn't so bad as much as the trauma afterwards.
So let me ask you this, unless you're going to touch on it after. How did the parents feel about him interviewing their kids and, like, agreeing with them? Did they care? Because I feel like...
That I didn't get a whole lot on.
Okay. Because I just feel like if you're trying to...
It seems the parents were a little bit mixed. Some of them, obviously we're going to school, like what happened. Others were like, don't talk about it, right? Back to school. Like there was a wide range of reactions.
Now, I'm so sorry. Was the school letting him interview all these kids? How was he interviewing them and talking to them?
I know he was doing it at the school. So I imagine at some point, well, we're getting into, so part of the aftermath of the whole thing, right? One of the teachers, by the way, so private school.
Yep.
Completely changed her relationship with God after this.
Okay.
She was one of the deniers at first, but very soon after everything occurred, she was woken up in the middle of the night with beings in her room and had her own abduction experience.
Oh, she got abducted? Yes. That's what you get for not believing, biatch.
So then she didn't tell any of her peers about this until years later, because she said, I was trying to bury my own memories and also discrediting the kids. She's like, for me, if we can make it seem like it didn't happen, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
All of these events actually caused her to become very, very depressed. She claims that the beings came back another time and offered to take her away with them as they would be able to make her happy.
This is what I'm asking for.
Right. And she stayed because she felt like she had a job and a duty to continue to take care of the children and has continued to teach at school since and has been way more vocal about the event.
I guess I'm not mad about her, like, wanting to do good and, like, teach, but, like, also just take me.
That's one thing I think that gives the kids a lot more credit, right? Then, obviously, like, we have a MUFON specialist, we have the renowned psychologist, and a BBC wartime investigator who come to the school and are like,
I like him.
This
I'm not
weird.
equipped.
Of the 64 kids, there's only been the one who's come forward on recent documentaries saying it was a hoax that he made up. And to me,
Yeah, no. That's just
I guess if the buddies he said he made it up with would have come forward too, I would have believed it, right? But
it was just him.
it was just him. So it's
It's
I feel like he has something to gain from that, right?
Yeah.
I think the other thing that leads a lot of credibility to these kids. So in the 29 years since this happened, there's a full-length documentary movie, there's a show on Netflix, there's countless other videos and interviews, and many of these kids, they're full-grown adults now, right? Have come up and said, like, here's what happened. And over the years, so John Mack has videos of Emma and Selma telling what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Then they're in this movie that came out a few years ago. Then they're in this recent Netflix thing. Their stories have stayed so
consistent
that it's hard to make that up. Yeah, memory is not 100%, precise all the time. But with that many children describing similar things, to me, it had to have happened. I'm going to pose some theories that I've come up with.
Well, let me just tell you what we need to do.
Okay.
We need to grab Andrea Perrin. We need to bring her to the schoolyard. And then she's going to sing to her galactic family. They're going to come, and we're just going to get the actual answers.
Okay, so Andrea Perrin is brought up in my third theory of what could happen.
Oh, shit. Okay.
So, we're on the same page. Theory number one, and most obviously, right, we got aliens.
Yes.
Beings from another planet came down to give a warning of what could happen if we don't take environmental issues seriously.
Okay.
Number two, mass hysteria.
Mm.
So a definition I found on that is something that is documented and could possibly explain these sort of events, right? So mass hysteria is the common term used to describe a situation in which various people all suffer from similar unexplained symptoms. Hysterical contagion consists of a quick dissemination within a collection of people of a symptom or set of symptoms for which no physical explanation can be found. It typically begins when one individual becomes ill or has an experience, and during a period of high stress, in which case other individuals start to show the same symptoms. Very, very medical definition.
Yeah, and I don't know what I know. Not just because I don't want to believe in that. I just don't think that fits based off of your definition.
I would say that kids are probably more susceptible to mass hysteria than adults. Like we were saying earlier, you get one person saying something and you can convince a whole crowd of kids to start making things up.
Now, are you kidding me right now?
Well, hold on. I'm saying in general.
No,
right?
I think that's so wrong. Kids are fucking smarter, and they're usually the ones that tell adults how dumb they are for believing in the things that we do.
Whatever. Disagree. But to go against that point, we have the UFO flap going on where there's all sorts of other sightings.
Yeah.
With people unrelated. And these kids were interviewed by 3 different people, and then years later, and their stories stayed the same.
I'm sorry, hold on. I guess if we were going to go with mass hysteria, it said that there was some sort of something happened, whether it's a traumatic thing or something happened that they saw, or it was a medical thing, right? So who do they think started this? What did they see? You know what I'm saying?
The definition I found was a medical based one, but there are times of groupthink or whatever, right? Where one kid sees something that's stressful to them, where they think they've seen, and now through their actions, they're convincing other people.
Okay, yeah, but okay, continue on.
Think about it did you ever do the thing in grade school, right, where the leprechaun came through around St. Patty's Day, and one kid would be like, oh my God, I saw it here, and then all of a sudden all these kids saw the leprechaun in the school, even though it was just teachers putting fake gold coins around?
No, that sounds terrifying.
Well, that happened in our school all the time, and kids came up with these crazy stories about the leprechauns they saw, trashing the rooms and putting these gold coins everywhere when it never happened. But people do believe it.
I get where you're coming from, but I want to know then what happened to whoever to start this.
That's where I'm saying I don't believe in it though, because of all the consistency afterwards.
Yeah. Okay, what's your next?
So the next one, we're bringing in Andrea Perrin and the Galactic Family, but she also, if we take from her a little bit, right, she'd still call them a UFO because they were flying around, whatever. But UFOs does not always mean alien from another planet. It just means unidentified flying object.
Yeah, she doesn't like the term alien either.
Right, because what that totally discounts is beings that could be multi-dimensional or from a different plane of existence rather than a different planet. And if we think about, if there's certain creatures that live outside of locations, time, and our dimension, they would technically still be from our planet, right?
Correct.
So would they not want to give some sort of warning if they knew environmental destruction was coming?
And yeah, that's what I was thinking that whole entire time.
So what I'm kind of thinking, right, if this is a private school, so we have kids receiving a better education, and for some reason only a handful of the 60 kids saw beings, and then even fewer received messages. Here's my thought. It's almost Terminator. Do you remember the movie Terminator? The whole thing is he comes back to stop Sarah Marshall from creating the company that would destroy the world.
Yeah.
I think one of these kids was going to create some sort of technology that would have had a huge negative environmental impact that could have started a whole snowball effect. And maybe
was
the
Elon
reason
Musk
for them
there?
showing up on that time, stopped an entire chain of events that we'll never even be able to prove now.
Yeah.
Or the final one is it was just a hoax created by a kid who wanted to get out of some of his classes.
That's dumb. No, the entire time that you were kind of talking about this and it being so heavily based on us ruining the environment and technology, that's exactly what I was thinking, is that this is somebody from time bopped back and was like, yo, you guys got to stop this because it's a little wild in the future. Let's tame this shit down. So yeah, I like your theory. I didn't think of it that way, that somebody was probably going to screw stuff up more, or if it's just hey, you guys got to start talking about this now. So I mean, either way, one of them maybe was going to fuck everything. What do they do now?
So, I mean, my thing is, right, if you're giving an environmental warning to the masses, why would you go to this school in the middle of nowhere in Zimbabwe? That's where I started to think more. It's it had to have been the path that one of those kids was
for
on.
A reason. Yeah.
And
no, that makes sense.
Whether it's aliens or multidimensional beings or whatnot, right? Humanity as a whole is not ready to deal with them coming out and being hi, we're here and we've been looking over you and we have a warning. Because let's be honest, we would have a meltdown and destroy the world anyway.
So ready. I'm ready.
Well, you and me are, but most people are not. There would be just literally mass hysteria from that. But if you could go, right, and think about it strategically, if you were to put yourself in these beings' shoes, what if we stopped some bigger things from happening on a smaller level in a place where it would have less of an impact?
Yeah, no, that does make a lot of sense. I like that a lot. What do the two girls do now? Do you know? Do they do anything to save the goddamn environment? I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, I have no idea what I do now or what they do now. They were both though interviewed recently in that show on it's episode 2 from the show Encounters on Netflix, and you can go and watch it. And they seem like sound of mind people. They don't look like the crazy typical, conspiracy aliens
believers.
People. Yeah.
No, I would just think that if I received the warning that they did as children, I would definitely be an environmentalist or something related to helping control technology and
the one of the other girls who they interviewed. So they bring a lot of them back to the school to interview them. And I love this just from anti-environmentalist thing is she's sitting there talking about what happens, but she's sitting at a school desk, but she's smoking a cigarette, and she's like, "Oh, if Miss So-and-so would see me now, she'd whoop my butt for smoking in here." It was
That's
just
really funny.
That part was kind of funny to me, but she definitely, not an environmentalist. I say as somebody who still uses nicotine products, so I'm not throwing shade.
No, but I do definitely like your theory. I mean, I would have went with that theory as, it's a warning, but I like why did they go there specifically? So I like your theory. That's a good one on that part.
Well, thank you.
No, I've never heard of that one. And that's definitely way weirder than Danny B skateboarding over my puke. I really, really am upset with that school teacher, because if they came to me and they said, you can come with us and we'll make you happy, go.
You should watch that episode because you can tell just her demeanor from they kind of come out with her story about halfway through, right? Mm-hmm. Where they make her look like the skeptic at first, but she just seems so deeply troubled by it. But at the same time, she she says she's saying it seems they make it seem like she still works there today because she has such a profound calling to like help kids.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Whether, she's dealing with deep depression and thoughts of suicide and this or that, but the thing that kept her going was her job and her duty to the kids.
Yeah, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
I would have been like, okay, let's go. Where are we going?
Anyway, that is the UFO encounter at the Ariel School.
That's crazy.
But yeah, so
60 kids. No, they...
Right.
Listen.
And 60 out of 64 seeing something is insane.
They saw that shit. Mass hysteria, my ass.
Speaking of seeing shit, here's my weekly request. If you've ever seen aliens or weird things in your schoolyard, send us your stories. You can do it either email down in the show notes. You can go to our website and submit it. We need only a couple more for another bonus episode where we read you all your crap back.
Mm-hmm. If you see us, since we're talking about that, if you see us pop up on our timeline and stuff, say, hey, hi.
Tell Kara she's pretty. She needs to hear it sometimes.
You can. All that good stuff. But anyway, that was a really great episode. Thank you. Do all the things that Zach just asked for. We appreciate you. We love you. But most importantly, creep it really, oddballs.
Goodbye.
Bye.